Flowmies. It's time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast. So this week we get to talk with Jamie Hallman. He's Flowmie's been in the group for a while. For those of you who know him, you know he's been on this really cool journey of going from working at a full-time company doing this kind of as a side gig to now he is on his own, and he's been running his own company for a few months now. So we get to talk with him. We'll get to talk a little bit, kind of find out about his journey, some of the things that he had to make decisions on, some of the challenges he faced. He was one of the winners of the Flowmie of the Year award, nominated by Kevin Hargis. And in this interview, you're gonna start to see why he was nominated. Just really has a great head on his shoulders. He's really making some good decisions and trying to help his business to become what he needs it to be, not just to do it because of the money or just for growth's sake, for a pride thing. He really wants his business to be something that functions for his family. So we're going to touch a bunch of things, just the changes in the growth that he had. You're going to really enjoy the interview. But also just one little note, I forgot to turn on or put my microphone on this interview. So unfortunately, my audio isn't as good as it normally is. So it might bug you for just a little bit, but I promise you, as soon as we get into the conversation, you're going to be focusing on what we're saying because it is really an interesting one. So anyways, I hope you enjoy. All right, Flowmies, well, we got Jamie Hallman with us today. How you doing, Mr. Jamie?
Hey, how's it going, Gabe?
Pretty good. So you are the owner of Hallman Window Washing out of Mattawan, Michigan, huh? How's everything going with business?
It's good. It's super busy right now. As anybody in the profession knows, this is the summer or the spring, spring rush now. Now's the time.
I think the spring is like the one universal season for all window cleaners where everyone is busy, because like in the winter you guys are dead, but I am hopping, right?
Yeah.
And then the same thing in the summer, you guys are like, wow, we all this work, and I'm like dead because we have the monsoon rains and it's just too hot. Nobody wants to do anything. All the snowbirds have gone back home, gone up back north. So it's definitely spring is kind of the one season that every single window cleaner is doing something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Well, we're glad to have you on. I appreciate you coming on with us. I did want to, first of all, congratulate you for your Flowmie of the Year award. Kevin Hargis was the one who had nominated you, and he said some really nice things on the podcast. If Flowmies, if you didn't catch the year-end episode where we announced the winners, please go back and listen to it. We named all the people who won, and everyone got to say why they felt they won. And Jamie certainly is someone who was deserving of that award. And we'll get into your growth as a window cleaner. But first of all, before window clean, because you're still pretty relatively new in the industry, what did you do before?
So for the last about 9 years, I worked for Western Michigan University here in Kalamazoo, not too far from me. I hopped departments around there, and I did what kind of got me excited about window cleaning, I guess you can say, is I was on a special projects crew there that there was about 20 of us at a time, and we'd use the boom lifts and the different equipment. That's how I got introduced to water fed, and that we did all the buildings on campus, and we did it differently than how I do it now, mind you.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of, I was there. I finished off there in the landscape department. I was there for about 3 or 4 years, minus COVID. We got laid off for a while, but
sure.
I've only been full time for the last about 2 months. So
nice.
I still got wet feet, man. I'm still learning.
We all still learn. I'm in 22 years into my own business, and I'm still learning every single time. I think that's the important thing, is that you're always open-minded to that, because I think there's two different traps, right? So when you've been doing it a long time, it's easy to say, oh, I know how to do it. I've been doing this as long. I don't need to learn anything. No one can teach me anything I don't already know. And you close yourself off to new ideas. But I think sometimes the newer window cleaners, they fall into the trap of like overconfidence, almost like they have to compensate for their lack of experience with almost a cockiness about what they've done, and sometimes they have put in the work to it, for sure. But there's just something about experience, you can't replace it. And so you put in the proverbial, 10,000 hours to become an expert. If you're only on, hour, 560, it's just hard to say that you're a professional. So still staying open-minded to learn and take in is so important when you're a young business. But and before we talk about just kind of your growth, because I think you have a really interesting story. So you got exposed to window cleaning at the university. Now, how did this transition until the idea was planted of like, hey, I could actually make some money doing this on my own?
Yeah, so I didn't really know that I could, right? So I grew up, fairly, not very well off, right? So, this never occurred to me that people did this and use this as a luxury, type of service. My wife's a teacher, and we're just trying to grind away. I've always had a couple jobs, right? So, we were just trying to find ways to pay off the student loans, pay off the debt. We did the whole Dave Ramsey thing, and we're just working through everything. And I was at Sam's Club, here in town, and I was making 10 something an hour, and they had me pushing this cart, doing this whole thing. And I'm like, man, this is terrible. And this is after working 8 hours at the university, and I'm like, there's gotta be more. And, and my wife's grandparents, one day they asked me like, hey, would you mind coming to help us out? And they were elderly, 80s. And could you help us clean our windows? I was like, yeah, I could do that. I mean, it's fairly simple, right? And a residential. So, and I did all by squeegee, probably use a bunch of paper towel and stuff as well. This was, 5-6 years ago. And, and my wife goes, why don't you do this? And I'm like, do what? She's like, window cleaning. I was like, no one's going to pay me to clean their windows, like me, like who am I? Right. So, and I mustered up the money and the small amount of money. I started with, bucket Bob type situation, squeegee, the whole type thing. And, and it just, the rest is history kind of, it's just, it kind of took off. And, I realized people pay very well to have clean glass, sometimes twice a year. So, I just rolled with it.
Nice. So what was the time frame then from the time that you cleaned your grandparents' windows to where you actually had the squeegee in your hand and you were getting paid for cleaning windows?
Yeah, so I think it was 2 or 3 months, where I did the research. I did the research, did as much research as I could do, not knowing a ton about it other than, squeegee to glass. I mean, even at Western, other than the water fed equipment we had, which was archaic, we use paper towel. I mean, we just did things, and you get paid by the hour, right? So it's just one of those things. But I remember my first cleaning, paying job was at a lake house. And it was a smaller one, but it had, 10, 15 foot. I was hauling in my Werner, 50, 80 pounds, trying not to bust up anything and not knowing what the heck I'm doing, and, trying to fold it up, and it went okay. I remember they had a hot tub out front. I couldn't navigate around, and then you throw in the pole work, and I'm like, man, the learning curve was just, crazy. So, and then word of mouth just took off, honestly. It's very populated around here, Matawan, Kalamazoo area, Benton Harbor, Battle Creek up to Grand Rapids. It's very, very populated, and not a ton of window cleaners. There's a lot of companies. We have a local fish. They pretty much took over commercial, right? Yeah. But they're just not and a couple other smaller companies that do restoration. A lot of them do window cleaning on the side. So it kind of just took off.
Yeah, nice. So when you started doing that, and you're starting to, like you said, get the word of mouth, who were those people? Who were the word of mouth? Was it just your former or your new customers, and they were telling friends and family, or was it your family who was kind of spreading the word, or both, I guess?
Yeah, I think it was kind of both. So I built a business initially on Facebook. Facebook was huge for me. I got the likes, I got the, pictures were big. People loved pictures. People loved the look of clean glass. And I was very good at marketing that. And, and I think, family was a big part of it. My wife was a big part of it. But I think the existing customer base that I was accruing just was, it was like hotcakes, 2 or 3 per customer. And And then it got to a point where I was like, if I'm going to do this 3rd story walkout, I'm going to need some different equipment. And that's when I dove into the water fed game.
Got it. So yeah, I found that if you can make a connection with your first customers, your first, 20 to 30 customers, and you just really show them that they're important to you, and you view them as more than just, the money they're giving you, they become your best cheerleaders,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
everybody loves to see an origin story. They love to
Yeah.
be able to say, oh, I knew him, when he first started, and all he had was this little rinky-dink truck, and now look, he's got a fleet, and they love to say that. So it's so important to take care of those people, and make sure
Yeah.
that they become your cheerleaders for sure.
I definitely agree. And, and that's kind of been my bread and butter. At first, I really thought I was going to go, I'm going to go commercial. I'm going to shoot for commercial. And
Right.
things just, residential became A, where the money
Mhm.
is, being a solo game, and B, just the connection. Jersey's been really hitting it a lot on his WCR Nation. You're selling
Mhm.
the experience. You're selling,
Yeah.
anybody can clean a window. Every guy out there every gal or girl out there, person out there can clean windows, but you're selling. Not many people can have that personal, relationship. And that's one of my company, mottos, is relationship based window cleaning. I have that everywhere. And that's, that's a big part of it. And I think that's what's, have me brought on, success for me.
For sure. So what was your strategy on Facebook that worked so well for you?
Just pictures were big, right? I crewed reviews. Facebook switched up the review game ever since I started. So I'm realizing my stuff is not getting, over the last couple of years, my stuff's not getting out as it was. But the reviews, they're not like it's either, I think, recommend or not recommend anymore. It's not 1 to 5 stars.
Yeah.
So, so that I don't know if it helped or didn't help, but, I've strived to, maintain a really good, history with clients, and I think Facebook, I have like 50, 60, recommendations, reviews on there. And I had a lot of those before I got on Google. So I think, with Facebook, just people sharing my stuff, adding little comments and explaining how I do it. People don't really know that you can use Dawn on glass, right?
Yeah.
They don't know you can use, I tell people you can use steel wool on glass. It blows their mind, right?
Yeah,
So I think that's a big part of it right there.
Nice.
Pictures are huge, and reviews are huge.
Did you ever delve into like local groups or anything like that? I know some cleaners do like the mom groups, and or they'll get into specific neighborhood groups and not advertise necessarily, but participate, and just kind of introduce themselves, so to speak. Hey, I'm so and so. I own this business. Hey, just so you know, if you guys are interested, give me a call. And then they just continually like are active in the group to kind of keep their name out there. Did you ever do anything like that?
I did on occasion.
Yeah.
Like I said, so much has changed. Their algorithm has changed so much on Facebook over the last few years. I did do some, garage sale groups. I'm in a group now, a business networking group, for the Kalamazoo area that has over 2,500 business owners on there. That is a huge deal.
Nice.
If you can find something like that in your area, because people, as business owners, they know what it takes. They know what it takes to get the word out. They know what it takes that people, are looking for. But yeah, I found myself being, one of the top people that people recommend as soon as window cleaning comes up, whether it be in any of the villages, because sometimes I get stuff I can't even reply to because I'm not part of the group.
Right.
So, but yeah, I did utilize that. I did.
Excellent. So now you're growing, right? And now you're getting more work. You're still working full time, right? You still have your other business. And I remember when I first kind of became aware of you, might have been even in the pro group, not even in ITF. You were asking a lot of questions of like, okay, how do I go from part-time to full-time? How do I go from, this is my full-time gig, and I think we even had a conversation a couple times on just some specific things. So what was that journey like to you? Because you reminded me very much of me. I'm a very cautious person. I don't like jumping into things. and so you really kind of had some steps that got you to where now you're finally, this is your income, is your business. So kind of walk us through a little bit about what some of those steps were and what helped you to know it was the right time to take the jump.
Yeah. So I was, like you said, very cautious, right? I did not, I have a family, at the time when I started this, I had a young son and, well, just about to have a young son. My wife was pregnant, I think. And, so I had a family, that I've always, always had one or two jobs. So so many people, one of the best advice I heard was, so many people get too eager. They put all their eggs in one basket. They drop everything they have, every job they have, their job, and they just jump into this personal business thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. University was very good to me. It was a union job. It had excellent benefits. The pay was decent, and it was getting us through. So, but I also knew that this window cleaning stuff brought in very, very good money as well. So, I told myself, you got to take it in steps. You can't overly jump on it. And I let the business kind of do the work for me. So I gauge myself every year. The first thing you gauge is money, right? Income. And, that first year, I think I made like $6,000. I did it for like 4 months, just getting my feet wet, learning. And, every year after that, it's either doubled or quadrupled. So, I just got to a point. I told myself, if I'm either making more money doing this part-time than I am my full-time job full-time, then I'm gonna have to take a step back. Number two, if I'm telling more customers no than I'd like to, because I can't fit them into my schedule, I got to take a step back. Or if it's affecting my home life, my marriage, my daddyhood, my fatherhood, being at home, I was sacrificing a lot of time early on. Sure. I was working 8 hours, going to, and then working another 2 to 3, cleaning exteriors on weekdays, and then going and weekends, Saturday and Sundays, missing church. Right. I mean, I was, trying to grind it out doing interiors. That's the only time I could do interiors, because I don't want to be around during dinner. Right. That's the thing. So, I think it was last year, it got so crazy for me. It got so hectic that I told my wife, I was like, I think it's time, because I can't do this anymore. I got to a part physically and mentally where I just couldn't, and honestly, she couldn't do it anymore either, because a lot of people see, the guy or the gal doing everything, right? But there's somebody at home taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, and they're doing just as much as you are, if not more. If anything, mentally, just grinding it out just like you are. So, I think there's a very hard balance there, so I think last year, I did finally, beat my full-time salary doing this part-time. I turned away a lot of customers, a lot of, work that I could have done, and, created those relationships and everything. And, I told my wife, I was like, I think next season's got to be the full-time.
Yeah. So what was that like talking to your boss about that?
Man, I warned him. I mean, he knew.
Right.
I was coming to work in my truck. My truck was clearly marked. I'd come in dragging, the next day, some days, knowing I had 12, 13, 14-hour days most days. And, so he knew. And I was very blessed with a very, Western was probably the only job I could get away with this with. Sure. Because any other job, I was going into work at 5 a.m, 6 a.m, working till 2 or 3, and then going to do exteriors. Any other job, most jobs, you don't start till 7, 8, 9. You work weekends. That job, God put me there, on purpose, and He knew what He was doing when He brought me through, and they knew, they weren't surprised at all. I gave them a 4 or 5 month notice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's really good advice too. If you're in a position like that where you're doing windows on the side, but you have future goals of going on your own, and I tell that to my workers as well. Just be straightforward with your employer. Mm-hmm. Just let them know this is my goal. It's not going to happen next week. It's probably not going to happen in 1 or 2 months, but in the future, this is what I want to do. And that way they at least know and they understand. And you're not, like you say, you're not trying to hide or sneak anything behind them, or feel like they're betrayed. You just drop it on them. Oh, by the way, I'm quitting. So if they know, and the reason I tell my workers that too, because I'm pretty open about training. If someone wants to, that's their goal, they want to have their own window cleaning business, I'll help them, and I'll train them and I'll encourage them. And even when they're ready to, I'll give them the days off, so that they can have one day to start building up their client base and going that way. But I just say, just be straight with me, please.
Absolutely.
Please don't show up one day and say, oh, by the way, this is my last day with you because now I'm making enough money. Just be straight with me. Hey, my business is growing. I'm thinking maybe in 3 months I'll probably be on my own. And hey, then it's like, uh, more power to you. Let me, get things ready on my end. And then now that gives me time to kind of find a replacement, or at least restructure the crews to kind of make up for that loss.
Absolutely.
So you did it the right way for sure. And I'm sure that the way that your company treated you lent itself to you being shown the same amount of respect back to them. So that's awesome. Nice situation. So now you get to the point where you're on your own. So what have been the biggest challenges as a new business owner from going from, okay, this is a side gig, but my bread and butter is coming from this, like you said, secure union job. Now there's no guarantees. So what's been your transition like?
So it's been hard, right? So, we've had a very rainy spring, a very cold spring, like a lot of people have had. So I didn't get to that, as good as a hot start comparing my, calendars from last few years. It's been difficult, but I think just balancing it all, right? So, I mean, I was, my wife helps me when she can, but, she has her own thing. So I try not to put too much on her, but, I've been getting 5-10 calls a day. It's getting back to those customers by the end of the day. It's balancing your schedule. That is huge. Learning to balance the schedule, balance the regions, balance the workloads, being solo. It's hard to get that. I have daily goals that I try and meet, and that's based numbers wise, is a big part of it. But I think, with the spring rush, I know things are probably going to calm down. I said that last year and they never calmed down. So I'm not really sure about this year, but yeah, I think just balancing everything. The work's the easy part. The labor's the easy part. The window cleaning is the easiest part. It's the schedule balancing. It's the, cause you're everything, right? I'm the secretary. I'm the worker. I'm the manager. I'm the boss. I'm HR. I'm everything. So it's navigating my way. I finally got a CRM this year. I've been doing everything by paper the last 4 years. So, navigating that, I use Markate. So, I love it. It's way easier. I should have done it 2 years ago, like everybody was telling me to do, but I was scared. So yeah, I think streamlining stuff is very important. Letting stuff like a CRM help you. Because once you do get it, it helps tremendously.
Absolutely. Very good. I'm glad that you got one. And then you're getting more organized, because that is, it's funny, you'll have workers, you'll have employees, I should say, and you're paying them well, but they're looking at you like, oh yeah, but you're making so much more. And, and they're kind of comparing what they do with what you do. And it's like, a couple guys I've had to have the conversation with is like, look, man, you have no idea what I do that you do not see.
Yeah.
You have no idea me, being up because I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time with my daughter, talk with my wife about the day's activities. They go to sleep, and then I'm up for another hour.
Exactly.
Doing work as a boss that I need to do, sometimes even more than that. I don't get paid for that. I don't get paid any more for doing that. That is just what I need to do as a business owner to be responsible and to make sure that my business stays healthy and organized, and it's like, so, it's funny when you'll get people who will be like, oh, I'm going to go start my own. And I'm like, go do it. Have fun. You'll finally have respect for me.
Exactly.
You have no clue of what, and that's just one of those things you could tell someone that, but until they actually get in it, they don't appreciate the pressures, because, and I'm sure you probably are dealing with this now. When I first started the business, I kind of the same thing. I was doing part-time, but when I made the jump to go on my own, it was like the next month, like it just dried up. Like that was nothing, no work, right? And I'm like, okay, let's go. And it was nothing. And so we were ramen noodling it for, a couple months. So it's hard to not think about the business all the time.
It is.
And it's hard to keep it in its place.
It is. It's very hard to have a off button. I try to, you got to think about putting your phone down. I mean, you got to think about, because I get requests, I get calls, just over the course of being here with you, I've got 2 calls, so it's after hours, right? So it's, people don't care, they want to get that contact, but You know, it's the grind. I didn't know, you know, and I'm slowly learning, and it's not overbearing by any means, but you know, there's just a lot more. I feel like now that I've gone full time, and this is what usually happens, I think, you know, I already have more customers in the books than I had all of last year.
Yeah.
And we're a month and a half in, right? So 2 months in. So it's, you know, it's a lot. It's like people know. It's like somehow everybody knows. And when they see me, you know, I have a pretty big presence online, and you know, that I've tried to crew up. You know, my reviews are really good on Google and everything. So people call me and they're thinking they're getting a company. They're thinking they're getting, a cruise, a secretary lady, whatever.
Sure.
You know, and then when I tell them like, hey, you know, I've even have my voicemail. I think I'm setting up like, hey, you know, this is Jamie. You know, I will call you back by the end of the day. You know, like I will get to you. So it's just, you know, it's that whole. It's a very hard balance that I'm going to take some time to have to learn, you know, and ITF and you and Kevin especially has been huge for me. You know, everybody's been so supportive. You know, I was in a couple of those other groups early on, and I think Kevin invited me. I found Kevin on Pro, I think, and he invited me at ITF, and I deleted the rest, man. To be honest with you, I think it was just I try to stay positive. I try to try to help people, and you know, and it's just been a gold mine. It really has.
Yeah, excellent. That's very good. And you got the right idea. You know, one of the best bits of advice I got when I was first starting out, because I did, you know, I'm an internalizer, you know, I let the stress sit in my stomach, and you know, and I'm thinking about it when I don't realize I'm thinking about it. And so the first year, like I mentioned, was rough, and I just didn't do the math. I assumed that it would follow the pattern, a linear pattern up, you know, to the growth, and it wasn't. It was a very you know.
Sure.
And so, you know, you kind of freak out and you kind of get worried about stuff. But what I learned and was told to me by a few people was, you know, look, you know, the work's going to be there.
Yeah.
Might you lose a job or two because you didn't pick up the phone at, you know, 8:00 at night? You might.
Yeah.
The work's going to be there. You know,
exactly.
You don't need that job. And sometimes if you've got, you know, a person who's expecting you to answer the phone at 8:00, those are not going to be the customers you want. They're not going to be the ones who respect your time or respect the fact that you have other things to do other than the business, you know.
That's been huge for me too. I'm a people pleaser. I love pleasing people. I love, you know, doing everything I can to get, you know, the job done right, be a good image, you know, people, I need this done by this date. I will try to squeeze you in as best I can in my schedule. But it's like, you know, it's finding your right customer. You know, I think that's been huge too. It's, you know, the customers that don't work out usually don't work out for a reason. And by the end of it, you probably don't want, you know, that client anyway. I've been blessed with very, very good clients, especially when I was laid off, you know, from Western for 4 to 5 months. You know, I was still grinding at Windows, and I, you know, the clients were just awesome, you know, I mean, because it made the news and stuff, because it was kind of a big deal here at the college. But you know, you know, the people around this area, and Kevin can, you know, can attest to this, that they're good people. You know, I rarely run into any issues, you know, but I think a lot of that is you know, is selling the experience and not the you know, the clean windows and leave, right? It's the communication, it's the relationship. It all comes back to how are you perceived, you know, as a person, and that's what I try to, you know, convey with a lot of my clients, is just creating that mutual you know, relationship, whether it's be somebody that we've known, you know, that we didn't know we knew, you know, both of us, or, you know, creating you know, a bond in other ways, you know, spending 10 to 15 minutes to listening to that 80-year-old story that haven't been able to talk to anybody all day, and they really just want to, you know, want somebody to talk to. I think that's huge, is just creating that kind of environment around the business is big.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. And I, you know, especially during COVID, sometimes you and the UPS guy were the only people that person speak to that day, you know.
Absolutely.
At least in person, you know, they'll talk to their family on phone. But I mean, I found that I almost viewed that as almost a responsibility on my part, that during COVID, when we did, we didn't do a whole lot of interior in the beginning. We started adding it on, as we started wearing masks and
Sure.
doing other things. And other people were comfortable with it, because in the beginning, people just were not comfortable, which I get.
Right. Yeah.
When we started coming in, I almost felt like, oh, wow, this is kind of a special little privilege that I have that a lot of people are not able to do, even loved ones are not able to go see. So you got to make the most of it, and obviously I wouldn't spend all day there because I got to work, but I would try to take a good 10 to 15 minutes and just talk, not do window.
Absolutely.
Not just look at them eye to eye and just how are you doing? What struggles are you, what do you need? And then when they knew that, oh man, now you got a customer for life. And
exactly.
It just was also just kind of a neat, just to give them a little human contact and attention. That goes such a long way, especially during that time. So I think a lot of service industry people kind of had a special role with that, nurses too, man, nurses during that particular time, they were talking to people who were sick and that was the only people they could talk to. So it is a special privilege.
It's a battle though sometimes, right? Because in your mind, it's thinking, you're always thinking about the next job, right? Mm-hmm. So, you really got to collect yourself and say, okay, the 10 to 15 minutes is not going to make or break this company. It's not going to make or break the next job. Mm-hmm. You got to kind of just mellow out because that's me. I'm always thinking like, okay, especially when I was, part-time, it was like, okay, I got to get home, like I got to get home to my family. My wife's stressing out, my babies are crying, whatever, so it's not rushing through the jobs, right? It's not, cutting people off short or just doing it and leaving. It's balancing yourself and just really, creating that bond. And that's going to make or break your next call.
That's it. And and the thing too, you have to view that time as an investment in your business, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things I tell my employees, because once in a while we'll send out surveys and stuff just to try to find out what customers are saying, and sometimes we'll get a customer saying, "Well, the tech seemed rushed. They seemed like they were on to the next job. They didn't give the attention to my windows that I had wanted." And we'll talk with them about it, and I always just say, look, you're going to be in a hurry. There's no way about it. We have a lot of windows. If a job's bigger or more work than you had anticipated, now you're going to be late to the next job. We can deal with that. Talk to the office, but never give the impression that you're giving a half effort job because you need to get to the next one, because you just told the customer, oh, by the way, you're not important. The next customer is the one who's important. So I'm going to just kind of breeze through your job, and I'm going to go give all my attention to the next one.
And that could make or break that next callback, right? I mean, I've had many calls. Exactly. I've had many calls where, people are like, hey, we were trying to somebody new, where, the last people just, were just, the windows looked okay. They weren't concerned about the windows, right? I mean, anybody and their mother can clean a window, and that's something that I've really been trying to stress to myself is like, people, Jersey hit on it. I mean, if it's, if you look at these reviews, the first thing they may say is the glass looked great, but then they talk about a lot of other stuff, and it's what people go to, and it's just creating that type of service.
100%. I mean, the first, because I said this a lot on the podcast. People always get probably bored when we saying it, but I only had a couple hours of training when I started my business. The guy who sold me the account, he showed me. I worked with him for about 2 hours on some commercial, and he gave me the squeegee and gave me the pole. That was it. Yeah. Actually, they made a really cool video that we watched, but it wasn't really super helpful. But the thing about it is that I survived not because of my window cleaning skills or quality. I survived because of my customer service.
Exactly.
And they put up with me for 6 months until I got good. And then once I got good, well then, now I cared, and then I had the skills to be able to fulfill what my desire was, which was to do a good job on the windows. But those first 6 months or so, I mean, I was this close to quitting. I was just so fed up because I could not get the windows looking the way I felt that they should, but one of the things the guy who sold me the business told me is just, look, you're looking at the glass a totally different way than the customer. Are you going to have
man.
picky customers? Absolutely, they're going to be there. But the vast majority they would be happy with a really bad job because to them, they're used to the spraying and wiping, and they got smears, they got this. So whatever you do is going to be way better than what they can do.
I've had to catch myself so many times because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist as well. And I'm looking at this thing from every angle. I'm looking it up, down, sideways. And, and I think honestly, I think that's what helped me early on. Because I really wasn't good with a squeegee. Honestly, I did the pulls, the first couple of years, until I, really got a hold of the whole, wag thing. But, people in the group, just seeing what other people said, they're like, look, the window does not have to be perfect, because even stuff that I mean, we all do it, right? You go in a convenience store and you're like, man, look at those drag marks, or look at those, look at that terrible finish on the ledge. My wife's like, what are you talking about? No one sees it. No one sees it but you, man.
Yes,
so it's just those things where you gotta, I mean, that's why some companies can literally go out and bust out 100 different storefronts in a day. Two guys, 100 storefronts busted out because they're not perfecting them.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not saying don't get good at windows. I'm not saying don't have good quality or have standards.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm saying that what the customers will remember is going to be your customer service and the other qualities that you bring up apart from the window. Because like you said, anybody can learn, anybody can become a good window cleaner, but the ones who they want are the ones who give them the experience. And that's with the good customer service, that's with the dependability, that's with the showing you care, all of that stuff makes you stand out.
Everything.
Punctual, keeping organized, all of that stuff is what customers will remember. So absolutely.
I agree.
Now, so you touched on your family life and those things that you've tried to kind of deal with as you were growing. So tell us the state now. So what are you guys working on? How is your wife with the business? Is she a part of it? Is she just a supporter? How do you guys work together on making the business work?
Yeah, so we're slowly figuring that out, right? So she's finishing out her school year. She's a kindergarten teacher. So, and we have two little ones. I have a 1.5-year-old and a almost 5-year-old. So, so she's kind of focused on her side right now. She's helped me tremendously. I just did an expo, for the first time. That's one thing that's really catapulted me is there's a lot of really nice people, good people around me, and I've got gifted some really cool things. And that expo booth was one of them. And so I was like, let's do it. I had 2 days to prepare, and we whipped it together. She helped me print all this stuff out, and anything she can do. She's always asking me, hey, how can I help you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure all this out. I don't, and I don't know, right? I don't know how she can help me with, how, because, I have a way I'm doing it all, right? I'm having a way that I'm processing it all. And, next year we may, I might take her and, I want to teach her the squeegee. I want to, maybe she can go inside, work on some tracks and some screens and some, the interior work, and I'm doing the polling, and I'll come inside and help her. And I think it'll take a lot of stress away from her. Teaching is hard, teaching, especially in this day and age. It's
thankless. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, she may be on her way out of that one. I don't know yet. We have to, pray about it and make some calls that way. But, so yeah. So I think this summer I'm going to bring her along to a few of the jobs, get her feet wet a little bit and show her how I do it, how I go about it. And, and we may be husband and wife duo next year. So
that'd be awesome.
We'll have to see. Yeah.
My wife and I worked together for quite a number of years. The only reason she stopped was because she started getting like arthritis and tendonitis in her arms. She was starting to feel actual pain gripping. So we moved her to the office. She started doing more of that, scheduling and calling and that type of thing. Would you say that now that you've gone full time, how is the balance, the work-life balance been? Is it improved? Are you still trying to figure it out? Where is it going?
It's definitely improved. I have, spring is a beast in itself, right? So, so I'm getting calls every day. I'm getting emails that I try to respond to stuff daily, because if I don't, I'll either A, forget about it, or B, get too backlogged. But I partner with a lot of companies around me, because I was doing the soft washing game for a while, and I partnered with a company just, a couple towns over that handle a lot of my soft washing for a lot of my clients that hold the same morals as I do, and stuff like that. So I'm teetering with them and trying to schedule, their stuff for them, and just incongruent with the window cleanings and stuff like that. But I think, it's I'm not working 13 hours a day anymore. I'm working, I try to work 8, but the squeegee kind of gets going a lot, and I end up, done in 6, right? So, that's the whole balance of the schedule, so that I'm still learning. But yeah, it's gotten tremendously better. I'm getting more sleep. I'm getting more than 5 hours. So that's a plus.
Man, that's I tell you, is a commodity in and of itself. If you can get a solid 6, boy, you're living in luxury.
I'm saying, I went 3 years, trying to keep up with the company at night, doing like you said, when kids go to bed, wife goes to bed or whatever, just catching up on the paperwork, catching up on the estimates, catching up on everything. And, before you know it, it's 11, 12 o'clock and you got to get up at 4:45. So
right.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you.
Excellent. Well, just keep working at that. It's one of those things that you gotta have open communication with your wife, because your wife wants you to succeed, right? She wants
Absolutely.
you to do well. She wants the business to do well. She wants, the family to benefit from it. But that can sometimes mean that she may have some needs that aren't being met, that she's afraid to tell you because she doesn't want to make you feel bad, or she doesn't want to make you feel like you're doing something wrong, So just open and regular communication on that, and you guys can start trying to figure out those problems, because
Absolutely.
Usually that's all it is just, you've just got to find the answer to the problem. You've got to find the solution, and there's always a solution, and sometimes it is cutting back on your work. Sometimes it's, being better organized, or simplifying or streamlining certain, things that you have to do, certain systems. But yeah, you guys, just keep talking about it, because that certainly is very important, and you don't want that to affect your marriage at all. But I think you already kind of are aware of that and have a good head on your shoulders. So
yeah, we celebrated 12 years this year, or we will celebrate 12 years this year. So yeah, thank you.
Very good. Okay, so now you're on your own, your family's behind you, you guys are kind of trucking, you got the future ahead of you. So what are some goals that you have for your business that you want to reach in order to, because we all want to grow, but we want to grow the right way. So what is your future looking like in your mind?
I've been thinking about it, as I became full-time, and I'm very torn whether I want a fleet, whether I want to stay solo. I think there's definitely both negatives and positives to both. Of course, I have a certain way that I do things, and no one else can do them that way, right? So I got to get that out of my head, for one, and for two, just exploring, because there's, like I said, I'm a baby. There's so much I do not know about this business. I never dreamed of owning a business. I never dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur. So, I'm gleaning off of you guys, honestly, the ITF crew, and just, different people around me, and just trying to figure out, okay, where do I want the business to be? Do I want to get off the glass? I enjoy the people. I enjoy the glass. So, it may be a little while before I do that, but I think the workload itself may force me to hire a hand next year, because as much as I can try, I can't do it all. So, and then a lot comes with that: workers' comp, subcontracting. How do I want to go about hiring somebody? Because I'm nowhere near, being able to provide insurance, right? So I gotta think about that. So yeah, it's honestly, it's all in the air. It could be one day. You could have asked me my first year. I never wanted to go full time. I never wanted to go full time because I was so comfortable where I was at. I had a great job. I told my wife, I told my accountant, because he was trying to get out, what do you want to do? I was like, I like the way it is. And then 2 or 3 years later, here we are. So, so I think it'll come, it's going to take time. I want to see how this first year goes, and the workload and the economy, who knows what's going to happen with everything.
Sure.
So, so yeah, I think it's up in the air at this point.
Yeah, very good. Well, I do recommend having a goal or having something to shoot for, because it kind of helps you to plot a path. For a long time, especially when I was doing it part-time and I worked for another, company, you do rely on that stability. And
Yes.
not that it was wrong to do that, because I mean it served our purpose. That was before we had our daughter. We had a very simple life. My wife and I, we were happy with it. I didn't need that much. So having the stability of knowing, okay, even if all of my window cleaning dies for this week, we still have this income that we can count on.
Right.
That comfort is worth something. The thing that I learned, and just by accident, just by kind of taking the leap when I started hiring, is that the more people you have, the more money you make, and it's not linear. In other words, if you make $100 an hour, and you've got another employee who's about your speed and they're making $100 an hour, it's not like this. It's like what's the word? I'm forgetting my math. It's
gradual.
Not gradual. It's exponential. So
Okay.
it's so like if you have three, because you're not paying them $100 an hour, right? You're paying them
right.
$20, $30, however, whatever works in your budget. So you're
Sure.
making that extra. So now instead of making $100 an hour, you're making $70 an hour on on that day, or 170. And the same thing, the more you add on, now of course that does, like you said, that brings extra costs, right? It brings workers' comp. It means you have vehicles, and now that's more supplies that you got to do. But if you have the work, it makes business sense to have employees.
It'll even out. Absolutely. And
not even out, it goes way beyond. And so whatever you're giving up for to try and maintain that stability, you don't realize how much stability you're giving up because of the potential that you have. Like you had mentioned earlier, when you're working for the other company, you're turning away work. That's all money that you could have been making. I imagine you're probably making about 4 times what you were making at the university, or 3 or 4, right? Or how much would you say from your business to when you were working for Western?
Yeah. So I'm making, every 2 days, I'm making as much as I was making every 2 weeks over there.
Yeah. So and that's the thing. Like I was talking with one guy, and he didn't want to quit because he's like, well, I've got these benefits. And I said, okay, benefits are wonderful. What are they worth monetarily though? Like what do you have that you couldn't go buy on the market on your own? That, how much, what is the expense now that you actually have? What is the actual value? And when you figured it out, he realized that he easily could pay that on the market by what he was making with his business.
And that was one of our biggest struggles, was insurance, right? Because Western had crazy good insurance, and now my wife's carrying us, and it's good. It's not as good, but it's pretty good. So now I've I reached out to a couple agencies around, and I'm trying to get that monetary number. I know the premiums are going to be higher. I know the deductibles are going to be exponentially higher. So that all plays into part,
But with the healthcare marketplace, especially if as long as your wife is working and she has the insurance available, you're not going to qualify for the marketplace.
Right. No, I'm saying if she jumped on with me.
Yes. Yeah. So she does. Now you've got the marketplace, and who knows what things are going to be available at that particular time. But that's the thing that I think we put an emotional attachment to the security of your standard job, without actually looking at the numbers and saying, okay, I feel like this is the right thing because this is a job that people would die for, but what is actually the monetary worth, and can I make that and more with my business? And generally speaking, if you're a good businessman, you do good work, the answer is yes. You can more than pick up whatever you lose with a union job and with the benefits and that type of thing. And you can get, it means it's more work on your end because you've got to do the research. You've got to, call around. And every year, I have a broker, of course, but every year the brokers call around. Okay, these are the new, plans that are available. I think this is a good move here, so that's all stuff you never have to worry about, when you're working. But it is a little extra work, but with the benefits that it can give your family, and help you to not be, like you say, 12-hour days. If you can stick to the 8 to 10 work and then be home, or do the work with your with your wife. That's everyone has to decide that. Everyone has to sit down with their family and what is our goal? What do we see ourselves doing? Because I know I talked to some, like with Michael Smith, James Smith, I'm sorry. They don't want to hire. They have one employee and they're good with that. And that fits with their lifestyle and that fits with what they want. And that's awesome, but for some who might have needs and need to make more, or maybe like, for instance, me, I don't want to be on the glass anymore. So the only way my business is going to function is if I have a solid crew making a certain number. That means that that's replacing me, and I can focus on the business. So that's where I'm working towards, So, get a goal at least, even if it ends up changing in the time frame that you set it. Have one so that at least you have something you can work towards, and not.
Absolutely.
I spin my wheel for so many years, and not that I regretted doing the work. I realize now how inefficient I was and how much energy, money, opportunities that I wasted just by not being educated,
Right.
Just by not knowing what I didn't know.
Ignorance is a big part of it. And I think that's probably, the majority of what I'm afraid of, right, is the logistics point of it. I mean, it's everything is a lot right now, and you throw in guys that depend on you and laying out their route work, or their doing everything while possibly still being on the glass and having your own thing. It's just, I have a lot of learning to do, and a lot of education to get in front of me before I make any of those big moves. So
yeah, absolutely. So a couple things. So are you on the IWCA?
I am not. Kevin's trying to get me in. I'm trying. I want to. I really do.
Well, a couple things. One, they have awesome classes. So if you can take some, I mean, that was some of the things. I probably owe, $50,000 to $70,000 a year increase since I've been in the IWCA, each year, because of just being smart and just understanding things about administration, about budgeting, and that type of thing that I just didn't know, that I learned in some of those classes. But even more valuable is access to mentors and access to other people in the industry who, it's like ITF is wonderful, and I think it is really great. I don't want to underplay that, because it has helped so many people and helped myself as well. But the IWCA kind of works hand in hand with that. But now you've got professionals, who from all walks of life, and from either the big franchise type businesses where they span all of these states, to just long time, owner operator window cleaners who have been doing their own thing, maybe have 2 or 3 employees, but they've been doing it for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And you just have opportunity to pick their brains. And when you're a member, they just give you this information, so that's what's kind of cool about the IWCA. The other thing too, with it was with growth. Now I'm forgetting my second point. It was IWCA was first, and there's another bit of information that I had in my head. Now it's gone.
It's all right.
Before the Flowcast ends here. But just thinking about who you can talk to, and letting that bounce off your wife, and thinking about the ways that it can help your business. I just personally have just benefited so much from it, and just exposure to people who are in my spot, and help me to kind of streamline things quite a bit. That was always my biggest problem, is just streamlining.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it for sure.
Yeah. That's, that was my biggest jump. CRM was huge for me. Right. So, I rarely did anybody care if they got an invoice, for one. Rarely did anybody care if they got a paper estimate, for two. It was, a lot of it was early on was just word of mouth. So now, being a more legitimate company, being, I've always had insurance, I've always had all that, but just being a more professional company, I guess is a better term, just having all of that stuff, I think really helps. And it's all stored, right? So it streamlines at the end of the year, you got everything. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, it's been great talking with Jamie. We are watching your growth with anticipation. We like to root for each other here in ITF, and you're certainly a company that we've seen just baby steps grow to get to where you are now. We're so happy that you've taken the plunge. We know you got a lot of work ahead of you still, but you really have demonstrated that you've got what it takes to make the business work for you. And we really look forward to seeing your continued growth. And thank you so much for all your help and participation in ITF. It really does. You're willing to help the other guys too, and I think that's an important part.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me on here. Big shout out to Kevin for really being there for me. Whenever I call, he's been a big part of my growth, and everybody in ITF. I've talked to a few guys recently, and just bouncing ideas off each other, bouncing wisdom off each other, and that's what it's all about. So everybody just keep pushing on, and do the right thing, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you. And Flowmies, we appreciate you guys for listening in. Thank you so much. And until next time, flow on.